You're listening to Copy Chief Radio. Get all the episodes and join the community at copychief.com.
Hey friends, thanks for being here. It's Kev. I'm with Nick Kusmich today. Nick is known for his ability to get incredible results with, originally Facebook ads was his jam when I met him, and he was known and highly respected for that. Now he focuses on high ticket sales and not using a funnel to do so. We're going to get into that. But first, I want to get to know Nick better because, like I said, I haven't had the opportunity to really get to know you, Nick. And first, thanks for being here, man. It's one of those things where we know of each other. We've never really had a chance to get to know each other. I want to just go back. I was reading a little about you. What a fascinating story. I never get tired of people's stories of how they ended up in this business, right? Because there's no one road in. So everybody's story is unique. You grew up born of immigrant parents. Your dad's Ukrainian, your mother's Korean. They were running convenience stores. You thought you were called to ministry. You thought that would be your life. And your dad had so many heart attacks when you were growing up that at one point, one of the cardiac surgeons thought you were practicing medicine because you'd gained so much knowledge. I mean, what an amazing amount of circumstances to overcome. Are you an only child? Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I'm an only child. I was the only one, which I had to bear the weight, unintentionally or intentionally, of like taking care of my folks as a result of that. So yeah.
Really interesting. And so what I read was that eventually you realized being a pastor was not going to pay the bills. Was that really the thing? Because I think people have this assumption that who cares about money if you're serving the Lord?
Okay. Well, tell that to someone who's barely getting by and can't feed his family, right? So there's a couple of things related to that. Yes. So early on in my, let's call it junior high years, I had an experience that at that time, my worldview told me I had an encounter with God, if you will. But more than anything, it just felt like from the depths of my soul that I was called to do something in this world. And I think we all have an inkling of that. I don't think I'm isolated and it's, he's anointed to do. No, I think we all have that thing. But for me, it was in junior high school, essentially, where I had that inkling that I'm called to do something in this planet, make some sort of an impact. And my worldview at the time was limited to say, well, that must mean I need to become a minister or a pastor. And so I fast tracked towards that. And by the time I was 17, I was hired as a youth pastor. By the time I was 19, I was ordained and I was running my own church, which is a lot like entrepreneurship, by the way. I see a lot of carryovers there. But one of the things that were important to me was, I needed to provide for my family. I had seen what happened to my parents. And again, immigrant family had way more month than money every single month. And I grew up just with that conditioning of my parents owned a convenience store that was open 24 hours a day. And mom would work the 7 a.m. shift to 7 p.m. shift. And dad would work the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. And I found myself sometimes after school just sleeping in the counter behind where they sold cigarettes. I mean, that was all I knew. And there's just something in me that just no amount of theology could convince me that was the way to live life. It didn't matter. So I grew up with that kind of understanding. And then I felt called into doing something for people and to be of service to people. It brought me into pastoring. And so one of the first things I kind of just said to myself is, I don't want to take a salary from the church because I feel like that just brings up a lot of mud, right? Everyone has something to say. And if I wear a pair of shoes or drive a car that the people don't like, they've got something to say about it because it's their money that's paying for my car. And I'm like, I don't want that. So there was a distinction that I said, you know what, I'm going to have to figure out a side hustle so that I could live my life and support my family and still do this thing that I feel like I'm called to do. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who's a pastor in ministry should do that path, but that was my path and that was right for me. So sometimes people ask, well, that's a really weird transition, Nick. How do you go from pastoring a small local church for 14 years into running Facebook ads? It's a weird transition, but it really wasn't, because my side hustle was just that. When I was, I must have been in my early teens when I recognized that my family's income with the convenience store was not going to cut it, that I had to step up and I just had to play my role as one of the breadwinners for my family as being the only child. As a young, impressionable youth, anytime you see anything that promises you great returns, hey, join this company and make $10,000 a day. And I was like, yeah, sign me up. I think I joined, all these network marketing companies and this, that, and the other. But in that whole journey, I came across a guy by the name of Corey Rudel. Kevin, do you remember Corey?
I remember the name. Yeah, I know a lot of people he was the first guy they discovered.
So Corey, for lack of a better understanding, was essentially like the godfather of internet marketing. He had written an ebook that was called Car Secrets Revealed, and he told people how to buy a car without credits and all this kind of stuff. But he was selling it on the internet. And so his next program was a course teaching people how to sell things on the internet. And I thought, well, this is very fascinating. And again, from Corey came Armin Moran, who started Big Seminar, and then all the gurus came out of that space over the years. But Corey was the original guy, and I read the book and I followed the stuff. And I think the timing was just right. Like, I was too late to the Google AdWords game because they had done all these slaps and animal situations that people weren't happy with. I'm like, I've got this book that I need to sell on the internet. What am I going to do for traffic? Facebook ads had just come out in beta at the time. And get this, at the same time, so did Plenty of Fish ads. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to play on both of these platforms. They've got a bunch of user data. I started to understand what it meant to target people and copywriting. And we all learned direct response from all the old greats. And I was part of that school of thought. And so I said, well, how can I marry this direct response thing that I'm learning with social advertising on Plenty of Fish and Facebook? And I kind of brought the things together. And again, I don't know if the universe just aligned for me or it just clicked in a way that others didn't understand it. But we started getting some good successes early on in the game, which then led to people saying, Nick, can you teach me how to do it? I said, I don't know. Let's try. Started doing that. And then other people are like, Nick, I don't want to learn how to do it. Can you just do it for us? And I'm like, well, I don't know, but let's give it a try. And so the consultancy was born and the agency was born, and still Facebook, or Meta as it's called now, is the platform of choice when we buy traffic. But obviously people have to quickly realize that it is just a traffic source. It is just a tool. And unless you understand the game of marketing and human behavior and psychology and all that fun stuff, a tool is just a tool. So that's the short version of how we got to where we are today.
Really interesting. You said something interesting on your landing page. It's nicholaskusmich.co is one of your landing pages. People just Google you, they're going to find you. But you said, because you will change more lives with your marketing than you ever will with your product or service. What do you mean by that? Mm-hmm.
I started to recognize, coming from pastoring into marketing, it felt like a new calling. And I felt like, how can I have the greatest impact that I couldn't have as a local church pastor? And one of my narratives told me at the time, well, if I could just align myself with brands that were doing good work in the world and I can get that out to the world, then I can play my role in the contribution of the betterment of everything around me. That would be my act of service. But what I recognize is, and this really clicked on me many, many years ago when we ran a campaign for a company called The Truth About Cancer, which people may or may not have known, but Ty and Charlene came together with this docuseries called The Truth About Cancer. And during that campaign, there were probably, we generated something like a 1.2 million leads that first year, but there was really 50 or 60 million people total who viewed the marketing. Wow. I mean, it was powerful. It was all about alternative ways to combat cancer and the testimonials and the stories that came from it as a result. But then it dawned on me that maybe of the 1.2 million leads and the 30, 40, 50 million people that saw it, but only, let's call it 100,000, 200,000, or 300,000 people bought, however many it was, only 300,000 people bought the program, but tens of millions of people saw the program. And then it just realized that if you do marketing right, it is not actually the transaction of the selling of the thing that you're trying to sell that will actually cause the change. It'll be the marketing experience in and of itself that will create the transformational change, because more people will see the content than buy the actual thing. And so that's when it dawned on me that, when you do marketing right, the marketing in and of itself will be an impact and a method of change for those who actually have an interaction with it.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I think about it. We're never going to get the percentage we'd like. It's always going to be the fact that probably 95, 96, 97% of the people who may have really been impacted by the messaging just do not buy. And that's just the fact of marketing. That's reality, though. And that's okay. Yeah, you can do incredibly well. How did that revelation change how you went about creating campaigns?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And my belief is that there are two kind of golden rules of marketing. Golden rule number one is you must give before you ask. It's why I wrote a book called Give. This idea that you need to earn the right to ask by giving a value in and of advance. But rule number two is that every step of the marketing process should be valuable in and of itself. So my goal in all of my marketing is that if someone were to interact with my marketing, whether they buy my product or not, or whether they get involved with me or not, they should walk away from that experience having said that I've gotten value from that. And people define value in different ways, but I want them to walk away saying, I learned something. I was inspired. I'm a better person. If I just apply this, I'll get some results, whatever it be. So my old school thought of marketing was, don't give away too much. Focus on the transaction. It's all about the call to action and persuasion and influence and all the dark arts of all that. But now, and again, it may not be the only way to market, but it's my way. It's the more value you can provide, the more give that you can give, the better off the person is on the other end. And you trust that in that process, the people who say, yes, I want to work with you, great. And the ones who don't, okay, you're still leaving from this experience having said, I got some value from that.
Yeah, and if nothing else, that makes you sleep better and feel good about what you're doing. But our friend Dean Jackson, I love his saying where he says, there are two types of buyers, right now and not right now. We think everything's so acquisition focused and we judge everything by the data of the immediacy, but it is a long game. And you see the people who have been in this industry a long time, and it's typically, there's something like that behind it. Their stuff is good. It is valuable. Everybody knows them. And then the percentages just always play out. Some percentage of people who are aware of them will purchase something, and then some percentage of those will purchase everything. And that's enough to make a really good life.
And to your point, and to Dean's point, like the now versus not now, one, we don't know when the not nows become nows. So we might as well continue to provide value to whenever they convert over. But secondly, I survey my customers all the time. And it's an interesting dichotomy, but if I'm in a room and we just sold a higher value consulting package or some sort of something, I always ask, I'm like, well, what percentage of people knew me only in the last week before they bought, right? Certain hands go up. What percentage of people knew me for the last year before they bought? And I keep going down the line. And I'm astonished to realize that the vast majority of people, like the most common thing I hear is, Nick, I've been following you for ages. And then I transacted with you. So like to your point, Kevin, if we only go for the immediate transaction right away, the amount of people we could be leaving on the table is astronomical. And people talk a lot about branding. Well, what about branding in the role of direct response? Like, what does that mean? To me, the best form of branding is just putting out really good, valuable content all the time that is hopefully evergreen, so that as people keep hearing and seeing, oh, that guy's credible, that's an authority. And again, I think the biggest shift for me was when I became 100% okay with the reality that the vast majority of people will just not transact with me. That's just the statistics.
Right.
So if you just kind of know that and you're like, okay, well, 3 to 5% of people will buy from me. Okay, then what about the other 97%? Let's still give them something of value anyways. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter. I'm not attached to the transaction. I'm just attached to this idea of, can I outvalue everyone else? And hopefully that builds a legacy and some value for those who are ever considering to work with me.
I love that. Let's talk about the context of that in like sort of this old term of the free line. It's like the free line got moved, then I got moved back, and then I got moved, and now Hormozi is obliterated and all these things, right? So what have you learned strategically about how much to give? Because people worry about, well, if I oversatiate them, then there'll be no reason to buy. And then other people will say, if you give them everything you have, they will still want you or to learn it from you directly or your team. So there's opposing theories on this.
Yeah, there really is. And I think there's also not only opposing theories, but it also depends on what it is that you sell. Like if all you sell are courses and information, that's a little bit of a limiting box. I do like, and Hormozi wasn't the first person to say this, but whoever said it, he's reiterated it, is the more you give away for free in terms of information, the higher you're allowed to ask for the implementation or something like that. But the idea is if you have a higher ticket consulting or training or mastermind or whatever it is that requires some sort of a touch point, then for me, the free line just doesn't exist. Like my idea is I'll give you everything, because if you could do it on your own, good on you. I don't need to make money from selling information, but I do make my money on the implementation or the coaching or the consulting of it. So my line doesn't exist in my world, but there is an argument to be made for if somebody only sells courses or programs and sells it from an information standpoint. I think there has to be a line somewhere where you can't give away what you would for free if that is your entire program. But I am still not a believer in like, well, you teach the what, but not the how. I don't like that, because it is a little bait and switch and say, hey, this is what you need, but you can't get it until you buy the how. I think Frank Kern may say it best back in the day. And it's this idea, and D. Jackson says it a different way, however we want to see it. But I think it's this idea of providing results in advance. So there's a line and it's linear, and the person's trying to get from point A to point Z. And nobody can get there in one jump. There's A, B, C, D, E. There's all these steps in between. So even if all you do, if your point Z is information, then why not give away point A through F? It's still how-to, and it's going to get them all, as far as they can along the way. And then at some point, they're going to say, well, yeah, okay, if I want the rest, I'll opt into it. But I am a believer that the more value you can provide, the better. But I will say there's this great story that a good friend of mine, Taki Morse, shares, where he was in Australia and he's walking with his dad. And he comes across this street performer. And if I butcher the story, I apologize. But he comes across a street performer who's brilliant at what they do. And at the end of his presentation, there's all these people watching. And he finishes and everyone's clapping their hands like, amazing, great, awesome. And he stops and he yells into the crowd, don't clap your hands, throw money in the jar. And I think there is some element of that where, and I'm not saying lower the free line, but there is the reality of overwhelming people with too much information that gets them to freeze. And then they're like, well, I'm not going to buy anything because I don't know what to do next. There's just so much information. So I know we went in a couple of directions there.
No, that's right. And I guess that's the nuance of it. And it takes a long time to test that stuff. But that's, again, why you play the long game. So it starts with the philosophy. That's what I'm getting from you, right? Just believe this and feel it. As I was laughing at myself as you were saying that, I am horrible at closing on webinars. Horrible. It's because I'm a coach and that's what I love. I can't stop teaching on the damn thing. Oh, well, you're going to hold back and I'm not going to slash out prices and I'm not going to do it. Sorry. Look, I get it. I know there's so many communities, I'm doing air quotes, communities for entrepreneurs out there, all filled with their own version of overnight experts chirping at you from behind the screen. You got your Facebook groups, your Clubhouse rooms, just experts galore. How often do you feel like you're being pinballed around from thing to thing and picking up a little bit, a little piece there? How much of that is actually making it into your brain and your fingers and your business and affecting your money? How many of these people are actually out there in the field getting their hands dirty and testing to find out what actually works and what flops? Well, in the Copy Chief community, a real community, you get shoulder to shoulder with the most active, successful marketers working in the trenches today, all while learning from industry legends who rarely teach anywhere else, if ever. Copy Chief is an amazing community, super newbie friendly. Also, you'll find, elite level marketers and copywriters in there. They're all working to become the best at their craft, get paid top dollar for their skills, stay ahead of the competition by keeping their finger on the pulse of what's working now. That's the X factor when you're backed up by a community and you can get any question you have answered by people who actually do this stuff and can tell you from real world experience what to do for your project, for your offer, for your funnel, for your clients. Man, you're unstoppable when you've got that kind of confidence. Go check us out at copychief.com/join. If you've never been a member, you're going to see what you've been missing and you're going to say, where has this been all my life? And if you've been a member in the past, I would invite you to come and check out all the new stuff. We've completely updated all the tech. So we're on brand new platforms. Everything is slick and smooth and easy to access. And it's never been better.
copychief.com/join. I'll look for you inside.
Okay, let's talk about the no funnel thing, because I mean, this is a great headline. I mean, our whole industry is built on funnel.
Yeah. So here's how much I hate it, Kevin. I carry this thing around almost everywhere. And if you're listening by audio, I'm holding a plastic funnel because I think this is one of the biggest hoaxes ever created in the marketing industry.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. Like, whoever invented it, I don't even know. I wish I could give credit where credit's due. And it was smart that someone came up with this concept. And then, of course, Russell B. and all of them created ClickFunnels and all, whatever. Cool.
Yeah.
But let's just start with the analogy, right? The analogy is you have this big thing with a big wide opening on the top that you throw a bunch of leads into. And the funnel is supposed to categorize and qualify and do all this stuff and bring awareness and blah, blah, blah. And only at the end is where your best prospects come out. Now, Kevin, I don't know about you, but I've never actually used one of these things in my life, like for a real reason, except maybe, some cooking or whatever. But I had this and I took it to my hot tub with my kids. And I took a cup and I took the cup and I scooped it in the hot tub and I put it in the funnel. And what do you think came out the bottom? Everything that I put in the top. Not a bit of it, not the best of it, not portions of it, not the qualified versions of it. 100% of what I put in the top came out the bottom. The other thing I noticed was if I had a cup of water and I turned it upside down to empty out the cup, that water came out fast. When I took that same cup and I put it in the funnel, that came out slower. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm running a marketing campaign, I don't want to slow down my prospect. I actually want to speed them up for the sake of transacting with them if I have an offer that's valuable for them. So the very analogy or metaphor of the funnel is broken right from the beginning, because if they wanted to do what they're talking about, they're actually talking about a sieve, like a gold sieve, right, where you sort. That's not what people say. They talk about the funnel. So that's the one thing. But here's what I've come to understand, especially in the high ticket world. And I apologize for anyone who might be listening to this who may not be selling high ticket. And I think there's some considerations to be made in lower ticket stuff, but that's my world. People who sell something that generally is a $5,000 or more LTV to what they have and usually requires some sort of a sales appointment or something to create that transaction. And I started to think about it. And there's a couple of realities that I found is that funnels are designed for the wrong type of prospect. And what I mean by that is I think there are two types of prospects that exist in our world. And for the sake of easy language, let's call one an information seeker, and let's call the other a solution seeker. So let's just briefly talk about like the realities of these folks. Information seekers are just that. They are perpetually looking for more information. So they opt into a lead magnet or a webinar or this or a challenge or a summit. And remember, information seekers don't actually have any intention to buy, which is why the conversion is hard on them, because we're essentially bait and switching them and saying, hey, join my webinar. I'm going to teach you something. And that's how you know it's an information seeker, because the pitch is, let me show you how to blank. How to write better copy, how to run Facebook ads, how to. So they're like, oh, I want to learn how to do that. So they attend. And then our job through the dark arts of persuasion and manipulation, try to convince them to convert. And then when we get a 1 to 3% conversion rate, we're like, yeah, we win. Interesting concept. But again, the information seeker doesn't have any intention to buy. You have to convince them to do that. Secondly, they have more time than they do money. Mm-hmm. And so they're perpetually looking for more information. And there's this concept, I call it infobesity, like information obesity, infobesity. It's the reality that massive amounts of consumption without any implementation, but we still get this weird dopamine hit in the back of our brain that says, oh, I've accomplished something because I've consumed more information. Right. Now, let's juxtapose that to a solution seeker. A solution seeker values time over money. And so they're like, I want to pay, and I'll pay top dollar for a solution that can be provided to me right now. They're also very marketing aware, meaning when they see an opt-in page, they know exactly what that is. They know exactly that you're going to gather their information and put them through some sort of marketing funnel, so they avoid it. They don't go on webinars because they don't have the time for that. They're looking for solutions, and they're looking for them right now. In the words of Dean Jackson, a solution seeker asks who, an information seeker asks how. The solution seeker, again, has more money than time. They're looking for these solutions. They're willing to pay top dollar. They move through a process very quickly. And I'll just give you an example of me as a solution. I can't tell you, I don't remember the last time I ever opted in for a webinar or anything like that and sat through one. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying I've never, I don't do that. But let's say I didn't know you, Kevin. This actually happened in real life. So let's not use you as an example. Let's use a person I saw. I saw an ad of an individual that had a solution that I thought I might benefit from. And it said opt in for the thing. I'm like, hell no. I just looked that person up on Instagram because it was an Instagram ad. I connected with them and I sent them a direct message and said, hi, my name is Nick. I see what you have to offer. I'm ready to buy. Can we hop on a quick call to discuss? And they immediately got back to me and said, ha, 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 is this some sort of a bot or a joke? And I'm like, no, voicemail. This is Nicholas Kusmich. I'd love to talk to you about the offer. We got on a call. He presented the offer. It was for some like AI bot thing. I'm like, cool. How much? $5,000? None. Done. Let's go. And it was over. Because that's how solution seekers operate.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is when a solution seeker sees a funnel, they're completely repelled by it. They're like, oh, just another one of these. I guess the biggest problem that I have with all this is that 99% of the funnels that are out there right now are geared towards the information seeker. So my argument is don't stop that. There are tons of information seekers out there and people are making millions and millions and millions of dollars off information seekers. Please don't stop that. But the argument is that our greatest opportunity lies not in coming up with a more fancier funnel. Oh, this funnel, that funnel, chat funnel, this AI funnel, whatever, because then you're just competing against everybody else in your industry. Our greatest opportunity lies in the fact of not building a better mousetrap, but going after a completely different mouse, the solution seeker, who are being completely ignored. And every niche, every single niche has a percentage of their market as solution seekers waiting for someone to just basically be like, hey, I've got this. And here's the last trait before I stop talking about this because I get really excited. Solution seekers have the money. They're ready to transact right now. They don't have very many questions. They're going to be your best prospects, give you the least customer grief, and they just need their risk mitigated. They're ready to invest. They just want to know that their risk is mitigated if they get involved with you. And if you can address all those things, and what we have found is literally one page, no opt-in, 1 4 to 6 minute video with a couple of elements on there. And I'll give you a perfect testimonial. There was a gentleman who came into our world who has a company called Game Theory. And what they do is they teach parents how to get their children enrolled into the universities of choice. And they can usually do it by saving them anywhere from $80,000 to $200,000 in tuition fees. So usually they get 4 years for the price of 2. Beautiful thing, amazing. They've hacked the code on how to speak to admissions agents and all that kind of stuff. Well, they were brought up in the internet marketing world. So they were told, have a webinar, go through the whole shtick, book a call. And they were getting calls on average for about $600 for every webinar they held. And the parents would come on. And of course, the show up rates weren't great because they're busy parents, but whoever got it, they were getting calls. And I think they were averaging 1 call a day. So 7 calls a week at an average cost of $600 per call. Now, is that good? It worked for them. It wasn't great, but it worked for them. I just got the video testimonial this morning, which is beautiful, where he says, since we've implemented what I call the fast track process, the anti-funnel process, they now get 7 calls a day, but they get them at $60 a call versus $600 a call. And their conversion rate has gone up drastically because now the people who are coming on the calls, they're 82% pre-sold. They know what they want. And now it's just a matter of, let me answer your question, see if we have a good fit, and then take it to the next step. So that's just one example. But by understanding the psychology of the information seeker versus the solution seeker and providing a means for the solution seeker rather than some long, slow, outdated traditional funnel, now we're talking about actually an opportunity for the people who position themselves correctly to swim in a blue ocean with no competition.
Wow. Man, that's some preaching right there, my brother.
Yeah, I apologize. I get really excited about it.
I'm the same way when I'm a guest. I get all worked up in my stuff. It's frustrating. It's like you want people to know, but you're also frustrated that it's so hard to get people to just go, oh, you mean it can be easy? But let me push back a little because now you have me interested. You probably deal with this. People were so used to thinking in funnels. No, so you say 1 page, 4 to 6 minute video, some good information. How do we get it in front of people? Is this where the media comes in?
Yeah. Well, and again, people ask me all this. Does that mean like Facebook ads or whatever? To me, it's whatever media channel you use, eyeballs are eyeballs. So we like Meta as a platform, and that's where we drive a lot of our traffic, depending on the niche. But it could be JV traffic, it could be affiliate traffic. The traffic source is irrelevant. It's just the recognition that there's an opportunity of a category of our industry that are being completely ignored as a prospect.
Yeah. And we're speaking straight to them. And that's the thing is we're not top of funnel where, okay, it's kind of dumb, low awareness, wondering about, again, guessing who the market, how much, what percentage of who is out there, and then trickle down and just going straight to, hey, if you're ready to solve this problem, here are my credentials. Right. If you're vibing with me and you trust me, let's talk and I'll tell you
let's
how
have a conversation. Yeah. And that's essentially it. So we're talking about, like, as Eugene Schwartz might call, those who are clearly aware, problem aware. And I think the biggest transition that a lot of people have is like, oh, that's cool, Nick, let's go hack that. And I'm going to do that. We are so ingrained in how-to languaging, and we are so ingrained in speaking to the information seeker that they take medium mover information seeker language and they use it to the fast solution seeker. And the solution seeker, like, I don't want this. This doesn't make any sense. Like, so there is a huge mental shift that once you get the unlock, it makes a ton of sense. But and I think the easiest thing I could just kind of like lob out there for everybody is, if the information is how-to based as your bait to get people into your funnel, it's an information seeker funnel. Because remember, the solution seeker is not asking how, they're asking who. And so you have to reframe the entire conversation with different languaging. But when you do, they get it, you get it, and then you can load up this front end of an experience, if you will.
And so your business, how you work now, straight up consulting, you take people like the client you just mentioned and you teach them your way.
There's two ways to do it. And this is what I've just realized, and we do a lot of media buying still. So we still have our agency and we still run Meta ads and nothing else, no YouTube, no Pinterest, no Twitter. No, we just focus on Meta. But from this perspective, just because, again, I wish I didn't have to teach this. I wish I thought this was obvious to the marketplace and people would just do it, but it's not for some reason. So we have consulting and we have a done for you kind of scenario where if people say, hey, can you teach us how to do it? We have a program that walks them through step by step. We license our funnel to them and they just kind of modify it accordingly with our team support. Or if they're just like, Nick, I can't get any of this. You guys build the whole thing. We have that option as well. And I don't know how long this is going to last, because I'm hoping that this message gets out there and everyone gets it and like, oh, okay, let's go after solution seekers as well. But until we get to that point, there's a big need in the marketplace that we're just going to help fulfill. Yeah.
How long have you been blowing this whistle?
This is now 2 years, because
2 years.
What I started to notice was, like, we were running lead magnets and we were running this and webinars and all that, and I just noticed that the cost to get a qualified lead on the phone kept going up and up and up. And I'm like, this can't be it. How long can I do this for before the numbers don't make sense and the economics don't work out?
Right.
And so I'd always taught the concept of swim lanes, that there were fast movers, medium movers, and slow movers. What I didn't realize is when I tried to architect my funnel for the fast mover, it was still not speaking to someone who was like me. And then one day I just got this crazy idea, because my old funnel was add to lead magnet to call invite, or add to webinar to call invite. And I just said, what if we just eliminate that middle step? What if we just go like add to call invite? Now, I know a lot of people had tried that in some variety in the past and never made it work. But I said, what if we just apply the nuances of, if I was speaking to someone like me? And again, same thing happened to me. I was paying anywhere from $600 to $800 a call in my business niche, which is a heavy niche, $600 to $800 a call. Now we pay about $160 to get someone on a call. And once that unlocked for me, I was like, well, maybe it's just me. Okay, well, let's take a beta group. And we took a beta group through it of 4 different niches. And it worked for them. I'm like, okay, we're on to something. And so that was 2 years ago where I discovered it. We did the beta thing for 6 months until we proved it in many different spaces. And then about 18 months ago is when we started going full throttle and telling everybody that they have to consider this as an option.
Very cool. Love it. It's great. And you're such a good presenter. And this is passion. I could tell, this is from your time in the trenches. Obviously, you're preaching what you see working. I'm going to ask you one other question if I can.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
For you. So the call center's a big thing for me, and I'm sure you get this a lot. The biggest part of A founder is letting go along the way, building team, trusting other people, and nothing's more sensitive than your sales than that. Do you recommend you kind of bring somebody in-house who's already sort of ingrained in a zealot of your stuff and teach them to sell, or is that dangerous?
I love this question because this was a pain point of mine once we launched this. And I know this sounds like a damaging admission that was crafted in the archives of good marketing. This is not. What happened was we started getting an overwhelming number of calls. And so as a result of that, I'm like, how do we get more salespeople onto this? Because like for forever, I ran my business with 2 salespeople. That's all we needed, right? It was good. It flowed well. It resulted in tons of great experiences for everyone. But all of a sudden the call volume came up. And then I started to notice that in our clients, the people we built this for, the number one complaint was we're getting too many leads and we don't have a sales team to house it. And now as a founder, and those of you founders who have sales teams, you can recognize this. You almost had to have a whole entire division with your attention and effort on leading, training, hiring, keeping accountable salespeople. Gosh, salespeople are a different breed of humanity. Yes. And again, I know I'm generalizing, but entitled, and they need to be motivated, and they have up days and down days. And so this became a pain source for me. So all I can say is from our experience, you either need to be very confident and comfortable with utilizing a good portion of your time and resources to building an internal sales team. And just know that you're going to have to bite that bullet for the next little bit until you can bring in a sales manager who just knows the game and who can drive the revenue and can take care of all that. Because anything less than that starts to fall apart. But I will say this, and this was an interesting shift I had by talking to a sales agency, because I talked to one sales trainer who, we were negotiating at the time because I'm like, dude, I need salespeople. Just bring me some salespeople. I'll pay you for the recruitment. Just help me out here. And I go, how quick can they get started and start selling my stuff? And he goes, 48 hours. I'm like, not a chance. How can they turn around in 48 hours and like, they don't know my product. They have to go through my stuff and whatever. He goes, no, that's just a fallacy. So what do you mean? He goes, good sales has little to do with the product. It has everything to do with coaching the prospect towards the desires that they have and taking corresponding action. I could sell anything that I might not even know the intricacies of the product, because the people at the end of the day are not buying the product. They're buying the result of the product. And that was a little bit of an unlock for me. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. Can we onboard salespeople? And yes, get them ingrained in our ethos and become zealots of our program and all that. But do they actually know? And that's where I think I fall on the whole sales spectrum of things. It's salespeople have to be good coaches. But when I say good coaches, almost like a good life coach, willing to like look you in the eyes and say, Kevin, is this really the result you want? Or are you just twiddling your thumbs, making an excuse to try and figure out what you want to do next? Like really to look someone in the eyes and say, and Phil Jones, the author of Exactly What to Say, did a sales training for our team many years ago. And he says, just like a doctor, to make a prescription without a diagnosis is considered malpractice. A salesperson to make an offer without a diagnosis of the person's situation is also malpractice. And so there's something to say about just being able to speak to someone on a mano, person to person, human to human level, and be like, look, my job is not try to sell you anything. Is to ask you, what are you really looking for? And if our solution is a good fit, to keep you accountable to making a decision that is aligned with the intentions you had before you joined this call. Or if that's not it, then to call you out on it and say, hey, you don't actually want this. You're just making excuses, and that's okay. But this is then not for you. So why don't we find something that might be a better fit? And I think just by understanding that changed the game. But the old saying goes like, to make sales easier, you got to have good marketing. And I would say to make marketing easier, and I know this is not something that we talked about, I don't know if we have time to, but to make marketing easier, all of the stuff that I talked about with prospects and solution seekers versus information seekers, what I've come to realize is what the category pirates call category creation. I call it category 1 design, but they call it category creation or category design. And it's simply this understanding. And when I unlock this and I tied this in to the bigger realm of everything I'm doing, it changed the game for me. And this is the realization that in every niche, in every organization, in every industry, there is a company or two that would consider themselves as the category kings or queens. They're the top. They own 74% of the market share, which means person number 2, 3, 4, all the way to 100 in that space is all fighting for the scraps of the bottom 20%. And what they said was, and this is what part of what we do as well, is you don't want to compete in a category. Sally Hogshead, I love her. She says different is better than better, right? So many of us in our well, I'm a better copywriter. I'm a better Facebook ads person. I'm a better this. Or some of you, God forbid, take the other way and say, I'm a cheaper copywriter, or I'll do it for you cheaper. Don't do that. Race to the bottom. But when we compete on the level of better, all of a sudden we're still being compared. And competition is the worst thing we want to do when we're marketing. Do you remember back in the day, Kevin, when they did the Pepsi taste test challenge?
Oh, yeah.
Where they covered the Pepsi and the Coke, and they said, like, which one do you like better? And they made do a blind taste test challenge. Right. What Pepsi didn't realize is the millions and millions and millions of millions and millions and millions of dollars they spent to advertise Pepsi as the better drink was free advertising to Coca-Cola. Because every time they mentioned Pepsi, they mentioned Coke. And they were just advertising the wherewithal of Coca-Cola. So every time we say we're a better funnel this, we're a better that, we're a better advertiser, we're better. Well, compared to who? Now there's a comparison going on. So what we need to do in that sense is we need to reframe problems that people don't even think they have. And I'll land the plane in just a second if you're okay with it, Kevin.
Yeah.
We have to reframe problems that people don't even think they have. A great example of this is, do you remember not that many years ago, Kevin, when if we wanted to watch our favorite show, we'd have to wait till Thursday at 7 p.m. to do that? But we all thought that was normal. This is like, okay, we wait. And then a company came along and said, how absurd is that? That's appointment viewing. Why shouldn't we all have the right to watch as many episodes as we want, whenever we want, and binge them? And they created a category they called on-demand streaming. And all of a sudden, the light bulbs went off in everybody's head like, oh my gosh, that's right. Why should I wait till Thursday at 7? Why can't I watch as much as I want, repeats of everything, as much as I can in my time? Because my time is most important. So the company that then reframed the problem, appointment viewing, created a category, on-demand streaming. And because the company that did that was the people who framed this thing, they automatically became category king. And Netflix all of a sudden became the number one stream. Now, are there on Disney Plus? Yes, but they're all competing for second. Netflix is the category. You can think about that in ride sharing. You can think about that in every category. Yeah. So if you also notice what we were doing in part of this conversation, or what I was doing unintentionally and intentionally, is I reframed the problem. I said, you don't need a better funnel. You need to throw away the funnel and go after a better prospect.
Right.
I've created a completely different category. And because I'm the one preaching about the category and telling you what the solution is, then people see me as the category king for this thing. And now 4 or 5 years down the road, when everybody catches up to me, it's okay. I already own the space. So the idea that I think every business owner needs to walk away with is, funnel or not, prospect, information seeker, prospect, or solution seeker, all of this becomes exponentially easier when you can understand the idea of category one creation. People wrote a book called Blue Ocean Strategy, which kind of touches upon this idea. But when you can do that, then marketing becomes easier, ads become easier, copywriting becomes easier. All of that becomes so much easier. And then, you see the fruits of your labor as a result of that.
Wow, man. So good. So good. I'm really rethinking things. This is so good. Well, the messenger has to be good too, Nick. Like you said, there's the versions of this out there. But let me ask you this. Was there a moment where you sat down and said, I've got to make this different? So like a copywriter would, what is my hook? What is my talking point? And then said, no, I'm going to say no funnel, anti-funnel, and start a new conversation. Was that a calculated choice?
I think it evolved over time. Like, we saw what was happening and I'm like, God, this is not working and it can't continue to work. And I don't want to compete against everybody else out there who's saying this funnel, challenge funnel, summit funnel. I'm like, gosh, okay, well, let's see if there's a better way. And we experimented with the better way almost by accident, by just stripping out that middle step. And I'm like, oh gosh, I just found something here. When I found it, I hadn't yet defined it. And then when I thought about it, a lot of people talk about in any industry, like pick a fight, like who you go into battle with. It's not an individual, but like pick a fight with an idea. And I just started to realize funnels are a joke. They're just, the very analogy is wrong. What have we done? I bought into this lie forever as well. Like the myth that you need a funnel. And here's the other myth. prospects need to be nurtured before they transact. Right. That's not true. It is in some cases, but it's not always. So I started to like piece together all of it. And then I realized, well, who am I going to pick a fight with? I'm going to pick a fight with the funnel, because it's an illusion at its very core of the metaphor, and it is ignoring some of our best prospects. Now, between me and you, Kevin, should everyone have a funnel? Yes, sure. Why not? Because information seekers still exist, and they're making people millions and millions of dollars. It's a legitimate process for the information seeker. All I'm saying is, by golly, don't ignore some of your best prospects, which are in fact solution seekers. And when you put the two together, now you have something that's fairly powerful.
Right. Fantastic, Nick. Can I totally switch gears and ask about your 100%. Tattoo? Because
which one?
I've noticed them, and I've been grilling everybody with cool looking tattoos because I want to get my first one. I'm 53 and I've never had a tattoo. And I think part of the fact that I'm thinking this much about it is antithesis to why people get tattoos and they actually look cool, because it was probably somewhat spontaneous. So I'm like my own worst enemy in this thing, but I'm curious about yours.
Well, I love that because I got my first tattoo, I think, when I was like 39. And then I will warn you on this, it becomes a little bit Pandora's box-ish. We're like, oh,
yeah, I've heard that. I'm planning for that. That's why I want to think like 4 or 5 ahead, you know?
Yeah. So it was a concept for me between design and meaning. Right. I couldn't just get something for the sake of the cool design, because all those people who got Pokemons on their back 10 years ago are like, oops, shouldn't have done that. Like, I like the design then. So there obviously has to be some meaning behind that. Like right now, are people going to only be watching this or listening to this as well?
Mostly listening, but we'll put it up. Yeah.
I've got an entire phoenix on this side of my chest that goes down my arm to here. Cool. And to me, that's just representative of many of the key moments of my life. The story of the phoenix rising, what is it, out of the ashes, the beauty, all that stuff. There's heavy, deep meaning in that for me, and it relates to me. And sometimes that's just kind of often a reminder. On this arm, I have my kids' birthdays, which is a very, simple thing. But again, my kids are everything to me. So it's just a reminder of who we are, what we represent there. On my ribs, I have a samurai. And for some reason, and I don't know my draw to it, I don't even know if I believe this, but I think if I did live a past life in another world somewhere, there's very strong ties to the samurai lifestyle and what that represents. So I've got that here. You'll see in my background, I also have a samurai sword that's positioned a very specific way. So for me, it was, can I find things that if I look at them, remind me of important beliefs, thoughts, situations, people, but also someone who can design them in such a way where they're evergreen. Because that's one thing I even said to the artist. I'm like, look, at one point, I'm going to get fat and old, and I need this to look still okay. Like, I don't want it to totally morph into something else. And so there's still a thought of like, if you're going to put something on your body, are you okay with it being there until the day you die?
Yeah.
And so that's why I didn't put my children's faces for whatever, because if I put them at what age, like 5 and 6, then
it's always
what happens when they're teenagers or whatever? Like, so there's certain things like that. But yeah, usually it was the hallmark of a meaningful experience that has happened in my life, i.e. the birth of my children, and or something that has such deep meaning to me that has stayed with me for years and years and years, that ends up being something that I ended up putting on my body.
And then when it comes to designing, do you meet with an artist, tell them the concept, and you guys work it out? How long is that process? Because it's going on your body forever.
Forever. Yeah. And I love like when you walk into tattoo shops, they have those like stay calm because it's permanent, like, stuff like that. You don't want to mess around. Yeah. I think the choice of the artist is probably the most important choice you make, because the artist will have the design. And then if you're going to do multiple pieces, like I used to live in Toronto. I now live on the West Coast of Canada as of 2 years ago. But anytime I get new work done, I'll hop on a plane and go back to my artist in Toronto. Wow. That's an additional $1,000 expense to fly back to Toronto, just the flight and the hotels and everything I need to do. But my artist knows me, and you're to your point, it's going on your body, like, for goodness sakes. So
that's what I keep thinking is like, I've met with 3 artists already, and I'm like, all I'm going to be is this guy's 4:00 appointment that day. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, and but it's on, what I did learn from that was like, it's really on me to have this concept down and think it through.
Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions too, though, because like you might be way more creative than me, but I'm not creative. So I can't envision what it'll look like. So I needed the feedback from my artist to be like, not quite like that. Or if I did it like that, this is what could happen. Or I know you sent me a picture of a Phoenix like it looked like this, but here's how I would have redone it. And when they send me their version, I'm like, oh, that's because they get the body, they don't understand, they have their style. So if you can't find someone who's willing to like tango with you a little bit, I don't want to be someone's 4:00 appointment because you pay a good chunk of change.
It freaks me out that they do that every day. They're booked every day. So all these people are just coming in, being there 2:00 or 3:00 and then out in the world. I'm like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I guess I'm more special than all those other tattoo people. But again, it's like making it uncool that I'm thinking about it this much.
As a last kind of concept of that, I think what's also important is, and again, everyone has their own thing, but you've seen people, let's say, who do like arm stuff, for example, and they have like 17 different mismatches of stuff that's just randomly filling space because it went to all these different artists and they didn't think through what the end result could be. So I think it's important to talk to the artist about that, to say, this is one piece, but I'm planning on doing 3 or 4 or 5 more to fill a certain
that work with it. Yeah.
They envision it so that it doesn't look like awkward things like coming together, but it was almost meant to be that way right from the beginning. I think that's a huge thing that people don't think.
Yeah, I really like one concept I saw that looked really cool was sort of a film strip as a sleeve.
Oh.
And then I thought, well, if the boxes, I have thin arms, but if the boxes were big enough, I don't have to fill them all in right away.
Fill them in.
Right. You find an artist that seems really cool, or there's a new significant event in your life, and it's just an ongoing.
I love that idea. Yeah. And here's the cool thing I like about the film strip idea, because that's kind of like what happened with my arm here. I didn't want a sleeve, but I wanted something that covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And so when we came, I think the film strip is a great concept for that, because you can kind of like wrap it around however you want. So it feels like it's a big piece, but it really isn't that big, but it does cover the arm. And the idea of keeping the film strips blank and filling them in, that's a beautiful way to tie things together. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking a left turn with me. That's it.
No, dude, I love it. That's my jam too.
Cool stuff, Nick, man. I really appreciate you spending time, a lot of wisdom. Just everything I've learned from you on multiple levels here today. I know listeners will too. We'll be doing more because I want to have you in the community. You've offered to do that. It's very generous.
Love what you've done.
Thank you.
I just want to say that, like, Kevin, like, there's a few people out there. There's a lot of quote unquote gurus and whatever that do their things, but and I know we don't know each other that well, but I've always appreciated your work and what you do for your community and the copy community, and just staying true to like good, ethical, proper copywriting. Like they're few and far between now when you look out into the world, but the successes you've had and the community you've built and the people you've brought together, I mean, you're a legend out there. So I'm just glad to be part of your world in some way. And I look forward to whatever's next and however that
Thank
happens.
you, man. That means a lot to me. I appreciate it, Nick. All right, better. Nicholas Kusmich, everybody. Google him. You'll find him. You'll see his stuff in action, what he says. You'll very quickly get great information, and you'll know how to take action if you're ready for what he's got. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk again soon.
Appreciate you. For sure.
Hey, don't forget your goodies. Head over to copychief.com/copychiefradio to get some great free stuff to help you put the things you hear on the show into action for your business. copychief.com/CCR.